it's going. There we go. So again, welcome to supporting Level 3 EAL students in the academic classroom. Again, my name is Carrie Toussaint, and I am joined by China Burkett. And as we gather here today, we are living and breathing our district's mission and vision statement of living and learning in our Catholic faith so that students, but also staff centered in Christ, realize their full potential. And on the screen, you can see the Board of Trustees priorities of student success, Indigenous education, well-being, and faith formation. And you can also see that we're all, as everything that we do, it is all rooted in our faith. And today we are learning and growing in our knowledge of how to best support the Level 3 EAL students that we serve. And I know this is a topic of discussion that each one of us always wants our best for our EAL Level 3 students. And hopefully today you'll get some ideas or even confirm some of the great things that you're already doing to support their success with language acquisition, but also in the content as well.
And we really want to thank you for joining us. It speaks to your professionalism and your dedication that you really want to serve and support your culturally and linguistically diverse students. Not only do we as teachers have to differentiate to support students in their success, but we have to also mandated by Alberta Education with our TQS standards to provide appropriate programming for the success of all students that we teach.
And the EAL team consists of 6 consultants who serve around 20 schools in their portfolio and all who have different divisional focuses. And our team supervisor is Sonia Stapleton and our area director is Holly Sheely. We also, as I had mentioned before, are very blessed to have 3 ELD enrichment teachers on the team. You can see China's picture there. And so just as we're starting, let's just do a quick check-in. How are you feeling today? And we have a variety of dogs with different expressions on their faces. And we've provided a couple of sentence frames to help you formulate your response, as well as a few words in a word bank. If you have somebody in the room with you, please share how you're feeling. But also, if you're on your own, feel free to just speak it out into the world. And for me, I have felt like a few of these dogs today. We had the pleasure of being over at St. Luke this morning, and now we're gathered here with you today. So I almost feel as if I am feeling like dog number 1 and number 3, because it's a really great day of learning, but a very busy day as well. So hopefully you can see yourself represented in any of these dogs. I know this morning I was looking a little bit more like number 8. That time change definitely kicked me in there. Oh, that's okay. Sorry, we have been having a few technical difficulties, but our goal today is to explicitly review the characteristics of a level 3 ELL student, some strategies to make that language more comprehensible for ELLs, and how to support their language production. And so anchoring ourselves in the importance of supporting an ELL in the academic classroom, let's reverse the roles. So this is a test and it's being read in Hungarian. And it's written in Hungarian. And sometimes we think that simply reading an assessment or an assignment to a student, especially a level 3, is enough to support the language within the assessment or that assignment. So let's see how we all do with just listening to these questions. So there are 4 questions in Hungarian. Listen to the test being read and see how you do. Do you feel like you're able to access the language within the test when provided a reader? And let's see if this works.
Első kérdés. Hány óra van egy nap alatt? A. 12. B. 16. C. 20. D. 24. Második kérdés. Melyik hónapban van karácsony? A. November. B. December. C. Január. D. Február. Harmadik kérdés. Milyen színű az ég? A. Kék. B. Piros. C. Zöld. D. Barna. Negyedik kérdés. Milyen évszak van a legmelegebb? A. Tél. B. Tavasz. C. Ősz. D. Nyár.
So how did you do? I know the first time I heard this, it would have been simply me just guessing at the answers here. So here was that first question. And with no context, or maybe if I had been learning in Hungarian, I may know some of these words. But if we say simply embedded a word bank and possibly also a visual to go with it. So I see aura, and there's a clock, and I know there are some hours on there. And then another word is nap in the question, and I can see that there is a calendar with a box around one of the days. And so I can infer, and if I had had some context, is how many hours in a day. And so then it's really supporting me with answering that question. And if I'm looking at the second one here, so I have for Karaksoni is a Christmas tree. And so it might stimulate a little bit more of my background knowledge is, what month is Christmas in? December. Looking at Zinu with the color wheel there, and then egg, the sky. And so it could be what color is the sky, so that blue there. And then lastly, looking at a visual of a hot thermometer or a temperature that's quite warm, and then looking at some seasons. And so which season is the warmest? And then it's helping me answer that. So not only having the test being possibly read out to me, but maybe embedding some other supports in there as well. And so understanding where students are linguistically is just one part of getting to know your English language learners and newcomers. It's important to learn about a student's journey, and you may have checked into PASI and seen a family interview report if a student was registered at St. John, or even some of their past progress reports or different documents in PASI. And these are excellent to review, but and this is a starting point, but the best way to gather that background information is really to get to know your students. And so welcoming families and students to your building and forming relationships with students is the best way to gather further information about their home language, their lifestyle back home, what schooling may have been like, was there any formal schooling, and we can't possibly learn everything about every student's culture, but learning some will strengthen a student's sense of belonging and show that we're really invested in supporting each student. And EAL Level 3 students are learning English through the mode of the curriculum. So not only are students adapting to a new country, school system, school environment, but they are learning the subject-specific and academic language required to access the language in our lessons through the curriculum itself. And you'll notice that the level of support required for an EAL level 3 student to be successful is targeted. So supports must target the language in the lessons being taught. And when working with our ELLs, we must be mindful that we wear two hats as teachers. And this is especially true for our EAL level 3 students. We wear our content hat and also our language hat. And when wearing our content hats, we use language to teach new concepts and topics. The curricular learning targets are outlined in the program of studies and are grade specific, with some spiraling of content in other grade levels. And achievement of these outcomes are indicated on the progress reports. In our content hats, we are targeting and assessing what students are learning, knowing, and doing. Now, in the other hat, the English language outcomes are outlined in our K-12 CCSD EAL benchmarks, which are based on additional language acquisition, and achievement is assessed based on a multiple year trajectory. Student achievement is indicated by their current English language proficiency level. And while wearing our language hats, we are targeting and assessing how students show what they are learning through reading, listening, speaking, and writing. Again, when wearing our language hats, we are using the program of studies, that curriculum, to teach the new language. And language is the vehicle that you deliver the content in. And so when we have a look, or sorry, China, are you back? Yes.
Yes, I'm back. So I really want to talk specifically about level 3 characteristics. We have our benchmark that can help guide us, but more specifically, we can talk a little bit about what an EAL level 3 knows. So from their background and exposure, they are starting to engage in new contexts with their English. They're still connecting with their home language, and they'll have a great basis for conversational English. But it's really important to know that they may have just exited an ELD course and do need targeted supports for them to access content in your classroom. Their conversational English might feel very fluid, and so that can sometimes mask the fact that students actually do still need scaffolds for them to develop more precise and more nuanced meaning while they're talking and engaging in content areas. For reading and writing, they can read, they can write, but they're going to need help starting to access more details, speak with more accuracy about what they're reading. And in terms of writing, they're going to need really explicit exemplars and teaching to access different types of organization and structure. In terms of academic language, they begin to use and understand academic language independently, but it's really important to still direct teach some of these academic words so they can access information and yeah. Some challenges you might find is that conversational English really makes them feel like, okay, they're understanding, but they really do need that support with academic language and even in some subject-specific area vocabulary. Receiving grades can add some pressure to students, so really helping them understand the format of the exams that they're taking, the rubrics that they're going to be using for grades can be really helpful. There's a variety of different compositions students might have to start to express their written language in. So narratives, essays, informational, and these will need explicit instruction. All of this in addition to increased vocabulary to access their assessments, and they also need to start to engage in content so teachers will have higher expectations for them.
And so we love this quote because we work with second language learners. All of our lessons are language lessons. It makes no difference what class we teach. So each one of us is providing instruction, support, clarification, all through the English language. And so it isn't dedicated to our ELA or ELAL teachers to help with that language acquisition. Each one of us have a part to play, and each one of us can support that language acquisition with our students. And so you may have seen this slide from Stan Jantz, one of our previous secondary ELA consultants. And as we begin today, I ask you to presume competence of our students. So ask yourself, what language production is reasonable to expect from an EAL Level 3 student? And this shift in mindset helps us to intentionally place our focus on what students can do rather than what they can't do, and then scaffold the learning from there. It assumes that all students have the potential to learn and that we as teachers have a really important role to play in facilitating that potential. And much like the idea of a growth mindset, presumed competence asks us to be open to our students' capacity to surprise and amaze us and challenge us to think critically about what we think we know about them. And this mindset shift requires us to confront our assumptions about their ability in meaningful and productive ways. And a mindset shift like this, it might feel strange to start, but when you change your lens from decided to open, not only do your learners thrive, but so do we as teachers. It changes the conversation entirely. Presuming competence needs to be at the center of all of our classroom structures. When we make this mindset shift, we move from feeling like we need to plan many individualized tasks to meet the variety of needs in our classrooms to targeted systems that have access points for all learners to be successful. And so content is the inhale and language is the exhale. And so really when we're giving students the vocabulary knowledge, the sentence structure knowledge, transitional phrasing, we're really giving them the language to have that very full exhale. And let's dive into two types of language acquisition strategies that can make the language we use to teach in our content areas more accessible to all learners. So our focus today will be, that building and supporting vocabulary, ensuring that we not only set students up for language success within everyday social interactions, but also equip them with strategies to be successful academically as well. We will also look at how to make learning visible to students by using graphic organizers, visual dictionaries, word walls, visuals. These supports and strategies begin with us as teachers in how we choose to deliver and support the content our students are learning, and need to continue to support students in how they show what they know through assignments and assessments. And so just a few facts to consider is if we look at the answers, they show us the importance of explicit vocabulary instruction at all grade levels. So about how many words do students know when they enter kindergarten? So that's about 5 to 10,000 words. How many words do students know when they graduate high school? So about 50,000. How many words do students need to learn each year? So we're looking at about 3,500 words each year, or about 10 words every day that need to be supported, intentionally used every day. And how many different words will students come across in their textbooks, say in K to 12? And that's about 88,000, almost 89,000 different words. So vocabulary is really a great place to start at. So let's start with building and supporting vocabulary. And many of you may have seen this before. This visual very accurately shows when we talk about the types of words kids are learning and using. And so language acquisition can be imagined like this iceberg. The small amount of the iceberg that we see from above is similar to the BICS skills, and that's the basic interpersonal communication skills, which include the social language, that everyday language that China was talking about, that our EAL level 3s can sometimes fool us into thinking thinking that they have more language than they actually do. And this stage of language development takes about 1 to 2 years for most students. And some of our resilient students, again, sometimes fool us by making us think they have learned all the language they need to be successful at school in this stage. But this is not the case. The larger, more complex academic parts of language are found in the KELP. So this is the cognitive academic language proficiency skills. And these language skills are the skills that students must be explicitly taught for them to be successful in academic courses at school. So this stage of language development can take up to 7 or more years. These are the skills that each of our students deserve to be taught in order for them to take whatever path they would like to support their future goals. And with the new curriculum coming out, I know it speaks a lot of tiered vocabulary, and it really goes along with language acquisition messaging as well. And the words we use and teach every day in the classroom are divided into 3 tiers. So tier 1 words are those which are foundational, really the everyday words that are used in conversation. Um, Everyday words, say in a science lesson, could include grass, sun, dirt, and you can see that this is the foundation to the triangle being built upon. Tier 2 words are academic words that are found across different subject areas and are really your high mileage words because these words are used in various classes and contexts. A lot of our directing verbs that we use on assessments come and fall into this category. So examples might include evaluate, synthesize, draw, conclusion. And then finally, tier 3 words are subject specific words. And these are words students will hear mostly at school. They will learn about photosynthesis and normally only use these words again at school. So if you're supporting an EAL level 1 student, you're focusing on those tier 1 words in a unit. If you're supporting an EAL level 2 student, you might be, continuing to support the tier 1 words and adding in some more subject specific words in there. Oops, sorry. But supporting an EAL level 3 student, you want to focus on tier 3 words, but also including a few of those tier 2 words for students to speak and interact with. Now, if we were talking about level 4 and 5 students, it's the full focus on those tier 2 and 3 words with less and less support as their confidence increases. And so academic language is extremely important to be taught explicitly to students. And EAL level 3 students are experiencing academic language in English for the first time with you. So it's not something that students will just pick up on. And as this quote speaks to, academic English is not a natural language for any of us. It must be explicitly taught, not merely caught. And as educators, we need to be intentional when we are selecting what words to use and teach in the classroom, and be mindful to use tools and strategies that can support students in understanding and utilizing this new academic vocabulary in discussions and conversations. We also don't want to avoid this language either. We need to use that highly rich academic words with students, but also support their understanding with them. And so you'll again notice that there are a lot of things linked, resources linked. And again, we'll send this out to you so you can click on it and have access to these resources. When you get the presentation, if you click on this link, it will take you to a document of academic word cards. And these are excellent to have when introducing an academic word. They can be displayed in the classroom and referred to when using these words. You can web with students synonyms for these words and have those synonyms accessible to students for when they are interacting with these words and need to reference the synonyms, specifically on those assessments where it might say define, whatever it might be. And there's nothing worse than having a student ask you what define means during their assessment. And so if we can equip them with these tools, then they have a place to refer back to. And when you click on this link, it will take you to many of those academic vocabulary words that are directing verbs found on tests that students will be given by their teachers. And you can see that the word interpret is used in social studies, science, ELA, math. And when students are exposed to these words in a variety of different subject areas, they are able to see that the word may look the same, but the skills needed to successfully use the word in each subject area may look different. And the elementary teaching and learning consultant team have done an excellent job organizing the words in each unit into tier 1, 2, or 3 words. So these are great resources as you're thinking about, what are the words that I should be intentionally targeting, specifically for those EAL level 3 students. And here are some vocabulary resources for secondary teachers. You may also want to check out those elementary tiered lists, as this gives you an opportunity to see the progression and spiraling of the vocabulary as they move through their grades. And then when teaching that vocabulary, be sure to be selective. So target a few words at a time. If you're working on an assignment with a student, pick 2 or 3 words to target for understanding. Be explicit, so directly and explicitly teaching the meaning, the function of the word, pair it with a visual, and possibly what it is and what it's not. Again, revisit these words frequently, and a great strategy is getting your students to talk using these words. So in a very structured way, getting them to talk through these words. Now, Kate Kinsella has developed a sequence of how to teach academic vocabulary, and I thought I would add this in here because it does not take long and it really is a good habit to get into. So you would begin by showing the student the word, or your class the word, write it on the board or on a piece of paper in front of them, then pronounce the word, use that I do, we do, and you do strategy. I say the word, then we say the word together, and then ask students to turn to the person beside them and they say the word to that person beside them. You can also clarify the part of speech, and this means if I say the word multiple, if there is more than one, we would say multiples. You can also note that multiplication has multiple within it. You can give synonyms, words that mean the same thing, or antonyms, words that mean the opposite, and talk through why they are the same or different. You can add a visual or picture or show a quick YouTube video to make the word more concrete in their minds. And so thinking about Kate Kinsella's sequence of instruction, right away I thought about a Frere model, which helps us do all of those things. It's an excellent way for students to record their learning about a vocabulary word or concept. So first you place the vocabulary word in the center. In one corner, a student-friendly definition can be added. Students may also want to add home language to support the definition or the process. In another corner, students can draw a picture or write the page number. They can find this word in their textbook so they can refer back. In the third corner, students can add examples, which are synonyms, and in the last corners could add non-examples, which are antonyms. And these corners can have different headings depending on what you would like students to do in their ability level. One corner could simply ask students to write a simple sentence with the vocabulary word. And this is a diamond Frere model, so you don't have to have that Frere model pre-photocopied and pre-planned. Students can simply fold a piece of paper vertically and then horizontally, and then pinch the center to create a quick Frere model. This one here could be used for a math problem or equation, which is placed in the middle. Then one corner, students could solve algebraically. The other corner, students can show the solution showing models or pictures. Another corner, students could write important definitions. And in the last corner, students can create a similar problem to give to a classmate to solve. And again, home language can be incorporated in all the boxes. And these FAIR models can be given, to all students and support them during an assessment. And for our EAL level 3 students, this could be the assessment. So this is a way to break down what they know, and now this is their assessment. And some of you, I know, have seen this example, but let's look at teaching a new subject-specific word to ourselves using some of the strategies listed in the previous slide. So I am going to ask you, do you know this word? Have you seen it before? What do you think it might sound like? And now I'm going to say it, chiasmus. So all of us together out in the world there, let's say it together, chiasmus. Now you're going to say it to the person beside you. So I'm turning towards China, chiasmus, and then I'm bringing everybody right back. And now I'm going to give you the definition. And let's think if this definition from the dictionary helps you understand chiasmus. Chiasmus is a literary device where there is repetition of similar ideas or words in a reverse sequence. So now it all makes sense, right? For me, I'll tell you, it definitely did not, just by from hearing that. So let's add an example. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. For me, it's still not there, but let's give another example. A is to B as B is to A, and then I visually can see it. Another, whoever exalts himself will be humbled. Whoever humbles himself will be exalted, and then I can see that reverse. I might date myself, but this commercial actually used chiasmus, and it's an old Band-Aid commercial. It goes, I am stuck on Band-Aid brand because Band-Aid's stuck on me. So maybe that's clarifying it a little bit. Maybe success is getting what you want. Happiness is wanting what you get. And then we could have some non-examples in there. Now, from all of that, it maybe took me about a minute to kind of talk through a few of those or show a few visuals. But it definitely, by showing it in a variety of ways, we can target all learners, and we give students multiple ways to remember and understand what that word means before they're required to use it. Now, I love PDF.com. It's an excellent resource to use when converting a PDF into a Word document that you can edit. So you can remove some of the unneeded language in the document or support vocabulary by bolding the vocabulary you want to draw students' attention to, and add some synonyms in brackets. You could also add in a sentence starter to model proper sentence structure in the student's response. I had the pleasure of being at St. Helena recently in a consultant residency, and some of the teachers were working on novel studies. And so then they had some discussion questions and response questions. And so you can see it says, and this was from a book called The Book Thief, and it was, why does Max feel that asking people for help is selfish? Use textual evidence. And so just by bolding selfish and putting some, what does it mean? Thinking of only themselves, or textual evidence, what in the book tells you this? We now have drawn students' attention to these important words, but also supported the important words. We didn't take them out. And then also Max feels that asking people for help is selfish because. And so that sentence starter has now modeled the sentence structure of a complete sentence for the student, and it also will help those reluctant writers just get into the task as well. And so I love PDF. You can use it as many times as you want, and it also is free. And then you can also convert it back to a PDF after you've done some editing. And so now we're going to start looking at how we can make some learning visible. And visuals can support the delivery of content, making material more comprehensible, or can support students in demonstrating their understanding. These supports remove some of the cognitive language load of written and spoken language for students to be able to show knowledge of content with less language. So graphic organizers, anchor charts can help students organize their thoughts. And by giving students a clear example or exemplar to follow, or a picture or video, this will help students connect their previous knowledge to the new material and build new connections. And if you click on this link, it will take you to the EAL core site, which houses excellent resources to help make learning visible. And so this quote here is a student expressing the importance of visuals. I couldn't make any sense of what happened in the Middle Ages and the lives people led. I could understand castle and in my mind imagined a beautiful castle in my dreams. When the teacher showed us a 4-minute clip of an old video film, it all clicked and I could make sense of all those other words, knights and vassals and all that. So this student had an idea of what a castle was from watching TV or movies and envisioned kind of that pretty, clean, perfect Disneyland castle. But when we provide a picture or show a video, students can see that castles in the past look more like they did in Game of Thrones, so dirty, little dark, not so pretty.
We use visuals to support students in lessons and in assessments, but I really want to highlight that you can also use them to support processes or observations that are happening in your classroom. So on this left side, we have a visual showing the process of a debate. This shows students the speaking order, perhaps where people are actually physically going to be in the classroom, the roles that everyone will play in the debate. And this can greatly reduce anxiety for an EAL level 3 or other students if they haven't participated in debates before. On the right side, we have a picture of a grade 9 lab. And in this lab, they tested a variety of substances. You could take a photo of this or put this under a document camera and annotate with the students so that you are helping them describe what they're seeing. For example, there's bubbles, the iodine turns clear. You're also scaffolding so students use this subject-specific language in their observations when they're finishing their lab reports. Here is another example of making learning visible in the classroom for EALs. So here we have a lab that's been annotated, and you could make this into an anchor chart in your classroom. It explicitly shows the format of a lab report, but you could do this for any specific type of written composition. Here I've shown that there's a clear title. We really want them to know how the information is organized, that there's a question, hypothesis, materials, observations. And it also shows the type of voice that is appropriate for this type of composition. As an EAL level 1 or 2, we might not focus on type of voice, but here it's starting to become important that they should. You could also provide signage around the room to front load some of that subject-specific vocabulary. For example, here there's some glassware. If you have signage around the room, students can refer to that when they are completing parts of their materials. And you could also include anchor charts around your room for cohesive devices used in lab reports. For our English and social teachers, here we have an example of just a body paragraph. So this is called a TDIC format, and this was adapted from Nicole Pun, the secondary ELA consultant. So we've broken down the different parts of the paragraph, color-coded each sentence depending on the function that sentence has in the paragraph. I would be explicitly teaching this to my students. As a level 2, they might be focusing on just producing writing. But here, the paragraph structure is really going to start to support students being able to write essay compositions.
And a visual is also an effective way to add clarity to a question, allowing students time to connect to their prior knowledge and also build up the background knowledge needed to tackle questions. By bringing up an image or showing a quick clip, we can prevent students from being derailed by the language. Using visuals will help build background knowledge, but also connect new learning to a student's prior knowledge. So this comes from a junior high math assessment. During a football practice, a player does 168 kgs of work while pushing a sled a distance of 250 meters. The force the player pushed with is something ends. So for a number of ELLs from all over the world, football can mean what we call soccer here. By reading the first line in the question, it has already derailed the student as they are picturing someone playing soccer. And this may create a barrier for the students as they demonstrate their knowledge of content. The word sled can also be a barrier for even native English speakers who may not have the background knowledge of North American football because the picture on the right is a sled. Who knew that? I didn't know that. And they may be picturing a toboggan. And so it's creating some confusion when in reality, we're looking for them to be creating a math equation. But quickly removing these barriers with a visual and explanation can ensure students are supported in answering this question, being mindful that even in math, there are cultural pieces. And so graphic organizers are also an excellent way to support our EAL Level 3 students. Graphic organizers make processes visible, supporting the organization of concepts. And they're really versatile in that graphic organizers can be used across content areas, lessening the language load for students. Graphic organizers allow for critical thinking without having to use high levels of language. So instead of the full report or a 5-paragraph essay or a multiple choice test, graphic organizers are a great way to assess what students know. They can support students in organizing ideas shared through discussion, planning for writing tasks, or they might actually be the writing task for an emerging level 3. And they may use this to record information from the textbook that they are learning so that they can visually picture and organize some of those concepts. And so the Frere model we discussed earlier is an excellent graphic organizer. It's definitely one of my favorites and go-to ones. And remember, you can also edit the expectation for each corner depending on the student or also your context. And just like China was speaking to, anchor charts are visuals designed to reinforce taught concepts. So these can be teacher generated, but also student generated. These make processes and thinking accessible. Anchor charts can model the process visually and provide exemplars of how to address questions and problems. And once students have created one, it's essential to refer back to them frequently and also teach students for them to refer back to them as well. And another way to support students in bridging language and build up vocabulary is by using a personal dictionary. Home language definitely should be encouraged. These ones within this slide have the English vocabulary word, the words written in home language, a student created definition, and you could also add which page in the textbook the word is found for students to reference. A visual or picture could also be added. And often as teachers, we support the vocabulary during a moment in class, but also remember to have students record their new learning within a personal dictionary so they can refer back and access this information again. And for an EAL Level 3 student, these personal dictionaries can be used during an assessment as well. And word walls are another way for learned vocabulary to be displayed for students to access. It stands as a visual reminder of the words students have learned and will encourage students to use them in discussions and when writing. Students should be reminded to look at the word wall and use it. It is essentially for them. If you click on the link on the right-hand side labeled Interactive Word Wall Activities, you will find all sorts of fun ways to use this word wall, and they're not just for our younger students. They definitely are for all ages. And these charts are called alpha boxes, and they come in large class sizes or personal 8 by 10 student versions, and they are essentially a word wall. It's a collection of learned vocabulary, and these large ones can be ordered through our district's printing services for a low cost. You can laminate them and use them over and over again, and essentially, when a new word is discussed, the word is added to the box. The creation of the word banks activate, prior knowledge from our students. They build up that background knowledge, and again, home language can be used to support connections. You can review these words also using that interactive word wall activities that was linked in the previous slide. And then bringing realia or real life objects into the classroom is so meaningful for students. Many students may have never seen a microscope, so we can talk about it and show them a picture, but there's something very fantastic and memorable when you first look through a lens and see something so tiny appear really large. There are many kits available for us to sign out at the Instructional Media Center, so the IMC. Just ask your Learning Commons librarian for help in seeing what is available. Now, forcing an ELL to communicate in ways that are beyond their current language capability often frustrates them and creates an emotional distance between them and school, which then further widens that education gap. So after ELLs understand the instructions, offering various differentiated tasks will allow them to communicate their understanding in alternative forms and in ways that honor their current language development. And so we thought we would put this in here as well because it also is nice to ground ourselves in what is reasonable to expect from a level 3 EAL student. So you can see the progression from level 1 where a student is gesturing, drawing, and labeling to the expectations of an EAL level 3 student. So level 3 students can show their learning with the use of sentence frames and starters to create detailed sentences. They can create and also read infographics. They can create a concept map. They definitely can show learning by sorting and categorizing. They can use graphic organizers and sentence frames. They are able to sequence ideas. They can take part in content-related structured talk activities. They can create text following a model and using exemplars to guide them. And most importantly, level 3 EAL students will benefit from using home language, especially to plan before starting a task. And lastly, we must support students with producing language as well. And language supports will include providing and using sentence frames or starters, supporting students through structured time to talk about learning every day, and prompting students to access their home language. And so sentence frames allow students to feel safe to take a risk entering into a classroom conversation or a written assignment. I often say that English is my first language, but because my mind sometimes would have a lot of information kind of whizzing through it, when the teacher called on me, I was that student that would say, I don't remember. But I know for a fact that if I had had a sentence starter or a sentence frame to be able to get me to that point of giving my own information, it would guide me into the conversation. Sentence frames or starters clarify the instructions. They support students so they can focus on learning the content. They provide accurate English sentence structure and grammar, and they help enrich a classroom conversation because more voices are now being heard. Sentence frames can be posted and used to guide conversation and vocabulary to support that student engagement. Again, sentence frames are not only effective for supporting writing, but they're also effective in supporting speaking when responding. And this slide is an example of language supports that can be added to answer this a math problem. Students can be provided transitional words, which may be enough for some, and for others, they may need to be provided sentence frames. By providing transition words and sentence frames, you are providing an entry point for all students into solving this equation. Before writing an answer, all of this should be modeled through that self-talk, the math talk they are having as they solve the equation. All students will benefit from visually representing the steps to solving this equation and talking through those steps. After modeling an exemplar, you could also use the exemplar to create a skeleton version for level 3 to fill in the blanks. This was a paragraph frame used in grade 8 ELA class, where one of the characters from the novel was writing a letter to another character, summarizing their current living situation. Not only does this give access to the assignment to a reluctant writer, it models sentence structure with a focus on transitional phrasing and transition words, which are cohesive devices on our benchmarks. And Wayne E. Wright says it well. Research has revealed a tight relationship between oral language proficiency and higher level literacy development. The better EAL students can speak and understand English, the better they can read and write it. So reading and writing in English really begins and is supported through speaking. And why is it important to dedicate time within your lessons for students to talk in a structured way about their learning? Well, interaction and collaboration support that deeper understanding. Conversation helps students to clarify, refine, and apply their thinking. And structured talk will build that student confidence, but also their competence in that skill. And some talk time activities can be formally planned. So for instance, providing a visual or realia and ask which one does not belong. Sentence frames can be given to students to support all students' access into the response. Tarsia puzzles will also ignite great conversation. A Tarsia puzzle is a jigsaw activity form of puzzle that students have to solve. In a Tarsia puzzle, each piece has a question or an answer in it, and as students match the pieces together correctly, answers to the questions are revealed. But not all talk time activities have to be formally planned. It can be as simple as posing a question and using the think, pair, share strategy or turn and talk to the person beside you. Sentence frames, again, can be given to support students in their response, or playing a game like Hot Seat, where one student stands or sits at the front of the class with their back facing the board. A word is held behind the student so they are unable to see it. The class gives hints to the student in order to guess the word. Also, would you rather questions are a fun way to engage students in talk. The would you rather questions can involve curricular outcomes as well. So for instance, would you rather be a part of a direct democracy or a representative democracy? There really is no wrong answer, but students are challenged to use language to defend their opinion. And using non-permanent surfaces such as whiteboards support collaboration in students' groups. These surfaces get students out of their seats, getting them moving and activating their thinking, but also in a very structured way. It allows students to see the work of other groups, which gives them ideas of things to try or perhaps what not to try. And it also allows teachers to see the work of each group at a glance, prompting us to offer formative feedback and question their thinking as they are working. Each K-9 school were sent these WESI card kits. Each kit has hundreds of cards with beautiful images on them. And within the kits, there are activity cards, but you may consider asking students which one does not belong. You could even just say which of these cards are you drawn to? And this is a great question because there can be multiple answers and each student would have to justify or prove why they have answered the way they had. Sentence frames can also be provided to help students get into that conversation. For instance, the something card does not belong because. And you can look for things that are the same in the cards, discuss why they're different, why they're similar, sequence a story, or play I Spy. And vertical non-permanent surface or chat stations also get students up and talking. And if you click on some of these links, there are some great ideas for you. And this is an example of one that we have seen out there. And so it's a math chat station, and the question is posed. At the Calgary Zoo, there are 15 penguins and 23 polar bears. If 8 more penguins arrive, how many penguins and polar bears are there in total? And so alongside there are discussion questions. How do you solve this problem? What operations do you need to use? Can you show your work? What if 5 polar bears leave? And so not only are you getting kids up and moving, but you are in a very structured way guiding their responses to help them stay on task as well. And then sentence frames can be provided to allow all students access into the conversation. So if a student says, I don't know, you could just be pointing and saying, first I added this, and then it gives them the structure of a really great conversation, but also a great response to the question. This is another one here. It's from a math talk, and if you click on that link, there'll be tons of these math talks. You can see the directing verb and also subject-specific vocabulary are bolded and synonyms are added in brackets. And then again, sentence frames are provided to allow all students access into this conversation, and there's also a picture and word bank provided as well. Clicking on the link above will take you to more chat prompts. So which one doesn't belong? These all ask students to challenge them to find which one they think doesn't belong and then also to defend their position. And really for most of these, there is no wrong answer if a student can justify their answer. And then again, a really great way to model the type of words that we would like students be using. So the something and something are similar, and we could even put in brackets, the same because, or they are not the same because. And another great resource and strategy is called the Picture Word Inductive Model, or PWIM. And it's a great strategy when beginning the writing process with EAL level 1 to 3 students, but really it can be used with all students. The process begins by providing an image to a student or a group of students. They start by labeling the things that they see with the vocabulary they already know. In this way, all students are involved in the activity. And then the process continues. And again, this process begins by selecting a really beautiful image and then ask students to identify what they see in the picture, label the image. So if kids are standing up, they could be saying the word, writing the word. color code words. Maybe all nouns are going to be in one color, adjectives in another. You can provide sentence frames to then build some really great sentences, and then connect those sentences together to model the use of cohesive devices, so transitional phrasing. And you can say, now we're going to take all of these like sentences and put them together, and now we've created a paragraph.
So here's an example of using a poem in a core class. So this was one in a Science 9 classroom. And these types of poems can be used for formative assessment, as review, when you're starting a unit or ending a unit. So here we ask students to label everything that they knew. There's some things that are in Vietnamese. And then after that, we provided them a word bank. They labeled more of the words that they needed to know for this unit. After that, they built some sentences. And here they're linking some of the verbs that will be used with these types of subject-specific vocabulary. Students can then keep these and refer back to them throughout the unit.
And this is an example from an ELA classroom where students were learning the parts to a thematic essay based on the novel A Monster Calls. So the teacher had created a beautiful image to blueprint the parts of the essay. And for an emerging EAL level 3 student, that student began by labeling the words he knew in the image. Sentence starters and frames were given to him where he created simple descriptive sentences. The next step would be for him to create his own sentences and then putting all the like sentences together in a paragraph. And then on the right is an image with a castle that was used to access students' prior knowledge before starting a fairy tales unit. And so by labeling the image, the student was able to show their teacher what they knew about castles and fairy tales first, and then they would work on creating initial sentences in that poem process. And PWIM can be used when analyzing a source as well. Students label what they see, concretely what they see. They then can examine evidence for how someone may be feeling and record those words. Questions can be provided to help students through this process. So maybe, what is the woman in the picture doing? What is the man behind? What is the man behind the woman doing? What does the word GOVT mean? What is the picture trying to tell you? How does this picture make you feel? Then students would complete a few sentence frames and lastly put these sentences together into a paragraph. And if you click on that link on this slide, it'll take you to a few more examples of some of these resources for social studies. And as you can see, the PWIM process supports the benchmarks as well. The competencies of vocabulary, sentence structure, and cohesive devices are being supported through the mode of a source analysis. And for any of our online teachers out there, or just anyone who might use PWIM on a Chromebook, you can provide an image from a novel you're reading or from a lesson, and students can use sticky notes to add the vocabulary they know. They can also make predictions about what they're reading. And sentence frames are added in, and students can access this support to create full sentences. Students can also be encouraged to build upon these sentences by adding adjectives and adverbs. And then we also want students to know that we value their home language and that their home language is an asset when learning an additional language. You can remind students that their home language allows them to access a wide variety of skills and knowledge that helps them make connections to the English language. So students' prior knowledge is linked to their home language, which then helps them better engage with the new content they are learning. And celebrating your home language will always validate who you are and the assets that you're bringing to the classroom. Now, these are a couple digital multilingual websites that provide some reading materials. Unite for Literacy offers a collection of stories that can be read to students in English and an additional language, and there's about 25 additional languages that are offered. Students have an opportunity to build literacy in their home language, which we know will transfer in the building of literacy skills in English. These resources also enable parents and guardians to be a part of the learning team, which strengthens the cultural connection to the curriculum. Mustard seed books are pattern books that are written in English and Spanish. They would be used with students who are in the beginning stages of reading English. You may have an EAL level 3 student who is reading, they are a level 3 overall, but maybe their reading is at a level 1 or 2. So students can read the book in Spanish and then read the same book in English. And the visuals are beautiful and really draw students of all ages in. You can also add subtitles in a variety of languages to YouTube videos. I've also found just adding the English subtitles can clarify the spoken word for all students. And if you have level 3 students who are engaging in a novel study, but because they are still working towards grade level reading comprehension, showing snippets of that movie of the novel, if it's available to EAL students, so that they can visually connect with the story, the characters, the setting, as they are listening to the novel. Now, this visual here is showing some high impact teaching strategies, but the next few slides have links to a variety of resources that have already been created that will support all EAL students in your classroom. And so there's a benchmark supporting document with a glossary of terms found in the benchmark. There's also a document has been created to support scaffolding. How much should you be translating materials for students and at what level? And when do you pull that back? There is also a continuum of support document that shows what is reasonable to expect from each EAL level of student, and also what are some different instructional strategies that are effective at each level. On the right, you see a cohesive device poster that can be given to students to support their use of cohesive devices, such as linking words. And then as they are maturing in their writing abilities, some transitional phrasing. And this is a link to the EAL team's YouTube channel, which houses all of our recorded PG sessions. We try to make sure many of them are under 30 minutes, so they're quick hitters. You can see resources that you could implement the very next day in your classroom. And this is the link to the EAL team's Google core site with all things EAL here. It's broken down into benchmarks, strategies, resources at each division level. It's still under construction, but lots of great things are there and you will be able to find it very easily. And this link will take you to a Google slide presentation of all EAL resources that are found at IMC. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the team's newsletter, which highlights strategies, resources, upcoming PG opportunities, but also gives information about countries that our students are coming from. And as we're just kind of getting close to the end of the presentation, I recognize that some of you might be joining at someone else's computer. So if you're already logged in with your own name, you don't need to add your name in the chat. But if you are joining someone in their classroom or on their computer, if you could add your name into the chat, we want to make sure that your name has also been recorded. And then feel free to add in the chat, an activity or strategy that you would like to try in your classroom. but also China and myself would like to thank you for joining us here today. And we know you had a choice in which PG session you would be joining, and we really appreciate you choosing us. So we want to thank you again for joining us. We will stop the recording and I'll try to bring my